Hello, 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 and welcome back to a Chakras and Cusswords podcast. My name is Catherine, and I am your host. Today, we are getting into some new moon energy, and this new moon is occurring in the sign of Virgo. This is actually a new moon partial eclipse. And this will feel kind of like a little bit of deja vu because this new moon energy in Virgo, we've already experienced it. It already happened in the beginning of Virgo season, right around August, I believe 23rd, we had our first new moon in Virgo. We are now having a second new moon in Virgo with a partial solar eclipse. Now, this energy is very different. Even though it's same and similar because it is occurring in the sign of Virgo again, but there's a partial eclipse tied into it, and also this is seen as the second new moon of Virgo season, which can also be seen as a black moon. This new moon is centered around the energy of everything the Virgo brings right in the beginning of the movement of closing out summer. While it's kind of a tradition to have some energy around saying goodbye to all things, this moon is actually really asking us to say goodbye to not just all things that haven't been serving us, but some things that may have been in our energy of overstimulation. And I will say this shadow season, this eclipse season, this energy, if we really look back from the first new moon that we had in Virgo, now to the second new moon in Virgo, a lot has changed. A lot has really changed, and a lot has kept us maybe feeling a little bit overstimulated, overstressed, or over cautious in some energies. The new moon is occurring on September 21st at 3:54 p.m. at Eastern Standard Time. And this new moon is occurring at 29 degrees and 5 minutes into Virgo. So the energy is different. The energy is a little bit more mature, a little bit more dark, as it is a black moon. What's interesting about this is this solar eclipse rises at the very last degree of Virgo. So this could be seen as a critical energy where the magic and the urgency really almost feels like a fate in destiny. This energy seems to almost like give a silent kiss to the final moments of this sign of this Virgo season. And it's almost like a karmic completion, or almost kind of like a debt that was owed. And it feels very cosmic, and it also feels very subtle, but then at the same time, it feels very, I wouldn't say vibracious, but it also feels like a little bit urgent. This eclipse stands to really be centered with Saturn and almost have like a cosmic dance with Neptune, pulling us in between our responsibilities and our energies of surrender, allowing the destiny to unfold. While the area of Uranus and Pluto definitely shakes this up, there is a movement of revelations and breakthroughs that could be occurring with this black moon. This black moon isn't just subtle, but it's also like a portal and some energies of darkness coming out. And many of us might be weighing in our energies of duties and our energies of responsibility and our energies of exhaustion and emotional tides that have really been shaking things up recently. And yet, this movement feels different and feels to remind us that transformation and change requires us to let go of certain things and certain energies of releasing. Most of the time with eclipses, a lot of people are centered off of shadow work. And I will say, as being in between of the two big movements that we just had a blood moon, and now we're transitioning over to this energy of a black moon solar eclipse, that this energy feels like a lot of reflection has occurred. And it makes us feel a little bit extra special because there is a presence of knowing that reflection is definitely the key. Self-awareness is the key, and understanding that our perspective and some of the challenges and choices that we make come from the first step of having an area of reflection and also an area of awareness. Now, this Virgo and Pisces eclipse cycle is continued from September 24th all the way on to February of 2027. So we will see this kind of energy again, but it will be different. It will be its own energy. While there is an area of the lunar movement through the destiny nodes, it also feels like there is a planting and a rebirth of new beginnings. And this energy echoes, and it almost feels like a little bit of repetitive patterns that may have occurred before, but are just in different formulations, where these patterns are occurring again, but different. So when we have a rare cosmic spark, such as this energy, it often tells us a story. And sometimes when we are settling in the story, we have to look at what the eclipses of the past once showed us. So the last time we had solar eclipses at 29 degrees in Virgo was back in September 22nd, around 2006, 1987, and 1968. So you could definitely look back at these patterns and see what was the movement during these times, what was the energy during this time, because everything's a pattern and there is an energy of repetitiveness that kind of comes back up. The Virgo's medicine, or the Virgo's tradition, is centered around being around service and also giving that area of ritual. I just covered the Virgo zodiac in the astrology series. For those who are paying attention to that series or listening to that series, we're going through all the zodiacs, and we just went over Virgo. And the Virgo definitely has that energy of detail, the area of devotion, and also a lot of flavor for self-services and also servicing others. And we see how we can definitely reclaim certain aspects of that. How can we service certain energies in our lives that maybe have been missing? This moment also is centered around health and the sacred rituals of reclaiming the structure. And that structure could be spell work. That structure can also be centered around daily, simple, but consistent rituals, like the little things that keep us going, that creates big change. It's definitely a time for us to be centered in not just the old habits that we are looking forward to continuing to do, but some of the new habits that we have maybe been falling victim to that we're going to try to change. We also have to look at the energy of outdated routines, as we can see a shift moving as we are entering different seasons. Now, for instance, we might not be able to go for our warm morning run like we used to because the weather is changing. So now we have to accommodate ourselves to different patterns and different routines that feel quite nice with this new season. There's definitely unhealthy patterns that are starting to get a little bit unraveled. And I will definitely say, whenever something big or something very grand, and it could be a positive or a negative in the area of how you perceive it, happens in the cosmos, it tends to really affect me in certain aspects. As an empath, I definitely pick up on energy of the collective, And there's times that I almost want to grab certain people by the mindset, or certain people by some of their own perceptions, and like control them or make them think how I think, or make them understand how I understand, or make them feel what it is that I feel. But in actuality, that's something that's never going to happen. And there's certain aspects about that that can kind of be harmful in your own center of energy frequency. Because if you're asking people to change their thought process or to see a certain perspective, it's kind of outdated, because not many people do that. So acknowledging those unhealthy patterns and saying goodbye to them. This is definitely a cosmic cleanse. With a lot of eclipses, we see this eclipse energy is a little bit much of a reset. And what's also interesting is this energy of eclipse season being a reset. This is kind of the ending tail for the summer of our eclipses. And in one energy, we're choosing to move to a different path or move to a different area, where with others, we might still be seeing ourselves going back into the same movement. This is a rare eclipse, and it is powerful, even though it is a partial eclipse, but is definitely the final stage of the Virgo. And the Virgo's karmic energy and the urgency of closing that door and saying goodbye, or nudging that energy out of our frequency, is very important, especially if you've been feeling very challenged from the last new moon that we had in Virgo to this new moon in Virgo. If you feel like there's been a lot of challenges and there's definitely been more negatives in your own personal life versus positives, then you really need to nudge yourself. You really need to get that sense of urgency to see what it is that hasn't been centered with you, and why and how come are these rituals still occurring, or these unhealthy habits still occurring. We understand that definitely during this time there are stressors that are going to affect us, and those stressors are sometimes very hard to deal with. But we also have to remember that our daily magic and our area of movement really creates a cluster of possibilities. And this Saturn and Neptune kind of tugging at our responsibilities and also our energies of dreams allows us to create change by acknowledging who we are in our area of our transformative state. So it's not only that it's just a solar eclipse, but it is often seen as a portal of new beginnings and new areas of devotion and ritual, especially in areas of health, wealth, and areas of positivity in everyday wellness. We are going to definitely see that it's time for us to honor ourselves and honor our own mindsets, but not get caught up in trying to shift or change the perspective of others. And there's a lot of small details that shape our lives that have been continuing to kind of pull us in certain situations versus others. And we have to allow ourselves to be okay with that. And we also have to allow ourselves to understand that there are definitely flaws in old systems, and old energies can possibly crumble or may have cracks, but we can't allow ourselves to get caught up in having too much energetic space or energetic movement that's making us feel depleted. And not only is this center around something of being a little bit more enchanted and being a little bit more aligned, and a knowing that the destiny has a pathway that unfolds for us, even though we try to maybe shake it up or get a little bit off rhythm, but allowing ourselves to understand that we are better and more preserved in a calmer state. When the world sometimes feels like it's crumbling, there's only some practical magic that will really get our energy of feeling more calm and less triggered. Now, I will say, if certain things have been triggering you, it could be social media, it could be relationships with family, it could also be other perspectives that we just don't understand. It's time for us to really take our own energy and hold right with it. For spell work or energies around closing out this Virgo season, I would definitely be centered with the root chakra. During this time, I would say between the two new moons, people were probably starting to feel a little bit alarmed or a little bit unsafe. Maybe there's anxiety, maybe there is almost an energy of feeling too comfortable and not wanting to change or even question our own mindset. But one of the things that we can do is to get right with the root chakra, allowing ourselves to feel safe and less anxious, also allowing ourselves to understand our own inner awareness. So ways that we could do this is definitely by grounding. I definitely recommend during this time grounding outside. If you can't ground outside for whatever reason, take time to ground in the house, somewhere where you feel comfortable, somewhere where you feel calm, and allow yourself to visualize certain colors of red. That red movement frequently traveling down your inner root chakra. The energy of the sacral coming alive in energies of orange, but allowing the root to really be the foundation of that dark red, of that safety, of understanding that your strength is within you at the root base, understanding that that movement is deep, deep inside you. Imagine roots growing from your feet deep into the earth and anchoring you. Also, I'm going to tell everybody, before you post, before you comment, before you get in an uproar in some of the things that might be circling in your social media timelines, take time to actually breathe and breathe out before doing these things. This allows you to really get anchored down with what it is that you are trying to say. But acknowledge that even if you say it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to change the perspective of others. So acknowledging if you have to say something, say it, but understand how come you want to say it, and understanding that with that action, there might become a reaction from somebody else, and we can't control others' reactions. Also, when we are centered around grounding and speaking and understanding our emotions, we need to understand what triggers us and reframe from the trigger. So if the trigger is family, if the trigger is certain places, if it's certain situations, acknowledge that. So you want to step away from the trigger, close that energy around the trigger, and understanding that you can move past it. So ask yourself, is this really about me, or is this about their own energy? Is this really something that is being projected onto me? You can also use mantras when you feel a sense of urgency or also feel a sense of emotion coming, such as, I don't have to carry this. I don't have to carry this emotion with me, and allow yourself to breathe and let it out. Also, you can return it back to the sender. So to return it back to the sender, you can tell yourself whatever is being projected is returned back to the sender. You can acknowledge with love, or you can acknowledge that is just being returned back to the sender. Also, you can protect your energy, and I've always talked about protecting your energy. Most of the time, protecting your energy means reframing from certain situations and certain people who cause this emotion or cause you to feel a trigger occurring. So you can also use crystals such as black tourmaline or smoky quartz, or something that is seen as a protective energy such as a tiger's eye. You can also use salt if you need to carry salt with you. Salt is considered a big protective. You can also allow that salt to be in the doorway, or also visualize the energy of clearing the negativity away from you. And also removing yourself from stressful environments. There's a lot of times I've just said, like, it's not worth it. It's not worth responding, or it's not worth getting into an energy that feels more upsetting. Because in all honesty, whatever it is, I'm not going to prove anybody different from what they're already thinking. One of the biggest things about eclipse season, and when we're acknowledging what triggers us, is to understand that with each trigger, there's something about it that makes us feel unsafe. And it's often something that makes us feel anxious. So what part of that makes you feel unsafe? And what part of that energy makes you feel a little threatened? And acknowledging how come. There will definitely be some old wounds getting poked during this ending of this closure of Virgo season. And sometimes these old wounds come from the interpersonal space. So acknowledging how come it is that you are still feeling a slump, or maybe still feeling that you don't have any motivation to get up and start new routines, or get up and end the old bad habits that have been continuing to come back up. So acknowledging that energy. Also, there's definitely an energy of movement that should take place during this closure, and that could include moving the root chakras, such as the energy of your tailbone. Also, you can do some yoga or some stretching. Also, stomping your feet or dancing is really productive in getting the root chakra more energized. I definitely feel like the root chakra has probably been feeling a little bit maybe overwhelmed or depleted, and not really having that movement of feeling like it has the strong foundation that it once had. It definitely, in between these two moons, we've probably been feeling a little bit too exhausted, and it's time to really cleanse it. Another thing that you can do is cleanse the area of not just your root chakra, but also an aura cleanse or spiritual cleanse. Many times people like to use Florida water, but Florida water is kind of seen as a sacred, some people would say closed practice, but you can make any kind of water. You can make your own Florida water. You can make like your own rose water. It really depends on what it is that you want to do to cleanse your aura. Also, you can wash your hands and wash your feet. A lot of people sleep on washing the feet. Washing the feet is a very spiritual connection. A lot of people believe the feet is almost the soul, the soul of your feet, the soul of the energy, the gateway, the energy of movement, of reset, the energy of clearing the aura, and also clearing the energy of the solar movement. And some would even say the entryway to the soul. The daily practices of resilience definitely should be continuing to go on as we are centered with this closure of this Virgo season with this black moon. So let's talk about what is a black moon. A black moon isn't necessarily an astronomical term. It's centered more around folklore, and I guess you could say even the occult, or people who are considered a little bit more magical and mystical. It refers to exactly what this moon is. It's a rare lunar event when the moon shows up twice in 1 month or twice in the same zodiac. There are a few people who really establish this moon, and they do feel centered with this term, while some may not. So the second new moon in the calendar month, sometimes we will hear a blue moon, but this is more used for full moons. But this time, instead of it being a full moon, it's a new moon, so it is seen as the black moon. The third new moon in a season with 4 new moons, the seasons usually have 3, so 4 moons is considered rare. And if there is no moon, for instance, in the month of February, since February is short, sometimes it gets skipped. It's also could be seen as having a new moon not at all, and the following month would have 2. So sometimes we will see this black new moon occur probably like around March, because February is so short, especially if February is on like a leap year, right? And the energy of the black new moon is centered around amplifying magic, but this is also tied into an eclipse, so it is a little bit different. We could definitely see how the intentions can be there, right? Some people will probably want to be setting intentions. I would definitely be setting intentions around banishing old mindsets, banishing old triggers. But this typically, if it is a black moon by itself without an eclipse, would definitely be a very potent moon. And if you were going to do any intentions or rituals, I would have it centered around banishing, reflective work, or also return to sender. You can definitely plant seeds for the future with this energy, and you can definitely use this energy as almost like a portal. The darkness of a black moon and the darkness of the energy of 2 moons in 1 month could be centered around healing or facing fears and trauma or acknowledging our triggers. There is a lot of ancestral work that can occur during this energy of a black moon, but you definitely feel that movement of a ritual reset, where we think of it as a lunar supercharge or an energy that allows us to rest as we break down the old cycles and begin to have new ones when the cosmic energy feels a little bit more supportive. And sometimes when we are working with this energy, we would definitely be wanting to write intention spells or spells around goals, also centered around movement. This is also a good time to eliminate certain situations. For instance, toxic patterns, cord cuttings, people, or eliminating people out of our lives, not eliminating them for good. Definitely some mirror rituals. We can't change other people's perspectives, but sometimes we can use a mirror so they can see their own reflection a little bit better, if you know what I mean. But we can also do mirror magic for ourselves and also light the energy of the candle to release some of our shadow self. With protection magic, I definitely feel like protection magic is important. Some people do protection magic frequently. Some people do protection magic maybe monthly. Some people do it weekly. It really depends on your own personal preference. But I definitely think that this energy is a little bit mystic. A black moon is mostly common when there are 2 moons in the same zodiac sign or the calendar year. Since we already had a new moon in Virgo earlier this year, it's happening again in the very last degree of Virgo, as in the beginning it was at 0 degrees. Now this is typically qualifies as a black moon tied in with a solar eclipse. So it's extra rare, it's extra cosmic, and we are centered around that double duality of movement that the Virgo really brings. So let's get into a quick reading. So for today's reading, I will be doing 2 decks. The first deck is the Starseed Oracle, and then the second deck is the Crystals Tarot. Now I will tell you, I'm a little exhausted. I've been having a fun. And I just got back from vacation. So I'm like, trying to get this podcast out. I was thinking about doing a video of, actually being on film, on camera. But I was like too tired and my mic fell and I had to get it resituated. My mic stand was just like horrible. And then I'm like, do I want to get ready? No. I'm like, no, I just got off of the airplane. So this is going to be what it is. This is definitely going to be what it is. So we will start with the fire signs. If you are a fire sign, you are a Sagittarius, or you are a Leo, or you are an Aries. So for your first card, for your first message, for your first energy, I'll definitely tell you that there's a movement of the energy of 3, the spirals, and also the energy of being in circles. And if you've been feeling like you've been overwhelmed with like decisions or people or consequences, take that time to understand that everybody isn't for you. And I just kind of like talked about this a little bit. Not everybody is for us. And there's some people in our inner circles who actually are centered around having more, I guess you could say, more control. They kind of just want to feed off of your aura, and they just kind of want to feed off of who you are as an individual, not necessarily see you grow, but just be centered around the energy of receiving all the gifts that you get and all the energy that you receive so naturally that they're almost like just very deceptive. With the 3 of spirals, there's times to look at movement of getting definitely more intertwined with your foundation and getting more intertwined with your root chakra, as we talked about before. But definitely seeing that is sometimes it hurts, right? Sometimes it hurts to say goodbye to those friendships. Sometimes it hurts to say goodbye to those relationships. But understanding that when you look at, is this relationship hurting me or is this relationship benefiting me? And while everything shouldn't be like for our own selfish benefit, we also have to acknowledge the energy that this relationship or this circumstance is putting us in. I would definitely work with the number 3 too. I would definitely do journal prompts that were centered around 3 prompts. And I want you to remain courageous. And I want you to really remain centered around acknowledging that you are very unique, and you're very unique in nature, and you're very unique in beauty. And people who sometimes who are naturally just whimsical and magical can have some of the most challenging relationships, because we tend to feel a lot of the energy that is put in our path because people literally want to receive our energy. And while we do stay focused on that, we also have to allow ourselves to be seen and allow ourselves to enjoy who we are. But just be protective, just work on the foundation, work on the energy of the roots, knowing that, everybody needs to retreat. Retreating is part of the dynamic, but also coming back out of the retreat is just as important. For the next zodiacs, if you are a water sign, which would be a Pisces, a Cancer, and a Scorpio, this is for you. Your message is there's definitely some energy of intuition that's playing out with you. Could it be you are a little bit psychic? Could it be you're a little bit colorful? Could it be that you're a little bit vibrant? I definitely see that. And I see that the world is maybe getting you feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Acknowledge that. Acknowledge the clearing. Acknowledge that sometimes with all these messages, sometimes with all these intuitions, we sometimes have to express them depending on how it is that we feel. And then there's also times that we can express them back to the universe, allowing us to be connected to not just our energy of foundation with the solar plex and the root chakra and the sacral chakra, but allowing that intuition to come out and allowing that movement to come out and allowing that perspective to come out. When we are messing with the energy of our thoughts and our perspective, we have to understand that these are our thoughts, these are our perspectives, and other people might not necessarily agree with them. Other people might not necessarily allow us to change theirs. So seeing if it's important to continue those conversations with certain people, or do you just allow it to die down? Also, one of the things that is very interesting is I feel like with your second card too, that you are centered off of being a messenger for the water signs who are listening to this podcast. And I definitely feel like there is an energy coming from the stars, coming from the cosmos that are speaking to you. And it could be frequent downloads as we are in eclipse season. And one of the things that I would say is grounding is very important, because when you are very intuitive, it can sometimes be a struggle. People don't understand that having a open third eye, as some would say, a very potent third eye, can sometimes be a challenge. As long as the third eye isn't so excessive that it's affecting us in ways that we can't sleep, or our dreams are just too loud, or they're too vibrant and they're too realistic, but it's allowing us to see the energy of the message and bring harmony and balance. So having a good understanding when it's time to really clear or get back to the stability of the root chakra, get stability back to here on earth, or the thoughts just going too much, too fast, too frequently. Sometimes I've had to reduce meditation. Meditation's very powerful in the intuitive mindset and also for intuitives. Sometimes too much meditation can be a little bit intrusive because we feel very centered around too many vibrant dreams, or too many psychic downloads, or too many intuitive thoughts. So if it's starting to feel too much, I would definitely talk to somebody and make sure it's not intrusive thoughts, and make sure that it is being centered around the intuition. But I definitely see a lot of intuition in your way. And if you do feel like you're intuitive, but you want to practice your craft a little bit more, I would definitely do some intuitive exercises, have energies around maybe guessing certain cards, or closing your eyes and visualizing what is the color of the card before you pull it. You can practice, meditate, but if the intuitive thoughts are becoming a little bit too much, then definitely get centered with that. Remember, it's about balance and harmony. For the let's see if you are a earth sign, this is for you. If you are earth sign, that means you're a Virgo, you are a Capricorn, or you are a Taurus. Two spirals. I definitely see the energy of movement coming your way in good things, the energy of duality, and also connections around nature and connections around love. When we are centered around the energy of two, we see that energy of duality. There's two sides of every story. There's two energies around us, and there's also two movements that bring us closer. I would definitely say look at creating connections during this pathway. Also look at creating fruitful events. You can allow your eclipse season to play out with reflection, with shadow work, but then after that, allow yourself to create those connections. I also do feel like there's a lot of harmony with somebody else. Maybe it could be a new potential lover, maybe it could be a new potential connection, or even a new potential child. So I do feel like there is some energy of nesting, and there's also some energy of movement around being in a unit and also being in a couple state. And for your other energy card, definitely wait, okay? It's not yet time, but there's definitely a connection coming and things are being woven. So if there's been something that's really been, I feel like there's something that's really been speaking to you, and you're going to have to give it time, you're going to have to wait, but it's definitely getting closer and it's definitely holding on. And what's interesting is like I really see a lot of portal magic, and I really see like a lot of area of movement that makes me feel like there's a connection coming, or some type of energy of like a portal coming where it's like a new pathway in your life. So I really feel like don't like be overly impatient, because sometimes when we're waiting for something, or sometimes when we see this energy or we feel this energy coming, we start to get like totally impatient. And just allow yourself that patience, allow yourself that movement. It's coming, my friend, it's coming. For the air signs, if you are an air sign, you are a Libra, you are a Gemini, or you are an Aquarius. Six of Mirrors, definitely centered around the movement of being intertwined with destiny and being intertwined with the fruits and the colors of life. I definitely feel a lot of throat chakra energy, heart chakra energy, and the area of the crown. This is definitely a time where we're going to look at mirror magic, and also the energy of the six. 6 and 3s are very powerful numbers. When we see this movement, we see that we can create our own reality. We see that we can create our own energy of illusion and also destiny, our own energy of vibration. I feel like there's definitely a time of feeding into the self. Like I feel like there's some self-love that really needs to take place with this card, and also some mirror magic and some reshaping of movement towards getting back into the beauty of the world. Sometimes we get so hyper focused on everything that's horrible. If that's politics, if that's the breakup of relationships, if that is maybe not feeling aligned in your career path, if that's, not feeling aligned in your family unit. There's sometimes we get so hyper fixated on the negative, on the things that have been weighing us down, and the things that have really been allowing that shadow state to just kind of feel so comfortable. Sometimes the fucking shadow feels so good. The shade of the shadow, it feels so fucking comfortable. You're like, I could fucking live in this. I could fucking live in this for a long time, because it feels nice. It feels comfortable, right? And there's always a little comfort in depression and not having that energy. But we need to understand that we are longing for the beauty. We're longing for home. And home is in the energy of our mindset. I know, as cringy as that sounds, but home is what you make it. Home and safety is where you're at as a whole. Home is longing for the foundation of understanding that nothing is quite like home but your own perspective. It's interesting because sometimes I think, can I move? I know I keep talking about like moving far away. And I was like, I feel like I would get homesick. But then my husband was like, but if you're moved, that is your home. I'm like, oh yeah, that is my home. Duh. So it's very interesting, right? Understanding that we can get a little homesick of the stars. We can get a little bit homesick of the beauty of alchemy, the beauty of the unknown, the beauty of the mystic, and getting a little bit more intertwined with our modern mystic of our magical energy. So definitely, I would say some sound frequency would be quite nice for this, for these air signs. I would definitely get zoned into the sound frequency and stargazing. So I want to thank everybody for listening to this podcast. Please like, share, and comment. And I just want to thank my cosmic baddies. I thank you guys for coming back to another episode and tuning in, and share this with your witchy bestie. Bye.